how excited I was to make a chapbook with Auburn, because the tradition of the chapbook, as I'm sure you'll be aware, historically was to make available very cheaply and easily popular literature. And that was, and of course they were distributed by itinerant peddlers who carried them around in their chapbooks, and that made it really suitable for my project, which I'm about to tell you about. So this project started with a visit to the workhouse a couple of Christmases ago. Literally, in Guildford there's a historical building that was a workhouse, and they preserve it and they open it up for visitors every now and again during the year. And I happened to go there on Christmas Day a couple of years ago. And while I was there, I became really fascinated by a code of secret chalk marks that the itinerant poor, or vagrants as they would have been called, used to communicate with each other. And they would use them to mark on the fence or the gate of the big houses which were the houses that would be friendly and might give them food, and which were the houses to avoid because there was a dog, or they might call the police or the equivalent. And I became really obsessed with these secret chalk marks. And I found that when I started to think about it, I was seeing chalk marks and other similar marks and signs pretty much everywhere in the urban environment. And if you think about it, you'll often see on the pavement or on the road little circles or triangles of chalk, sometimes on the wall. Sometimes I think they're put there for potholes or utility companies marking up some work they're going to do. Sometimes it's just mysterious as to why they're there. And the more I became aware of them, the more I started to see them. Sometimes I wasn't sure whether they were deliberate marks or were they just stains or scratches in the fabric of the town that I was beginning to read things into. But was so surrounded by text in the urban environment that I was reading meanings into these marks that I found. And so I created a little code of my own, a little chalk mark code of my own, which you can see here on the front of the chapbook. And the more I worked with these marks, the more they began to accumulate meanings for me. And a lot of the marks are based on symbols that historically have a meaning within a number of cultures. Marks like the triangle and the circle, so you'll be aware, have accrued a lot of meaning symbolically. But for me, putting them together into a language, they started to make other meanings. And once I formed this little language of chalk marks, Auburn and myself started to play with inserting them back into the urban environment. So we snuck them into some secret places, or we hid them in plain view, and then we photographed them. And the photographs form half of the chapbook, and the poems form the other half. And the poems themselves then were a response to the chalk marks. And it was as though I'd opened my door and found one of these marks left on my doorstep or on the wall. And this is the dialogue I would then have with the mark. So to help me to read the poems to you, to kind of give you that sense of dialogue, that's why I'm going to use my chalkboard. So I'll make the mark, and then I'll show it to you, and then I'll read the poem in response. It's very short, so I think I've got time to read them to you. We're only a few lines each. I return to you. I have a message for you. You feel along the rough wall for the mark you know will be there. Irrational to think because you dreamt it, you will find it, but your fingers still search. And here it is, reversed on your skin, a secret mark you cannot read. So you set an extra place at the table and hide a handgun in your kitchen drawer. I have many faces. You can just afford the rent until the next layoff. The great wheel turns through one more degree. There's luck for you. Are you feeling generous? And what if you attract the wrong sort? And there's a gang hidden at your gate. Like archangels, they travel alone, only one in your mind at a time. I am a warning. You live gently. You don't eat meat, and your traces on the world are faint. You feel nostalgic for a stylus, papyrus, marks smudged on with a stump of burnt wood, chalk powdered against this brick. The boundary of your mark fractures here. I am the sun and its shadow. The stranger refracts around you. You build another church, another wall. The mark is on your forehead. I stop at nothing. You wake up in the night with a stiff jaw. Wastewater from the local mill floods your river hard emerald. I am close and far away. You think you are light-footed, but you disturb this place. Your edges drive gleaming letters onto printed surplus. If this is the mark you put there, who is the stranger? I return to you. You scratch a frenzy of black and red headlines across your lips and wrists. You think you are safe now, but marks follow you down the street like a dog cocking its leg.